Have you ever asked yourself, why do I feel even more exhausted after retirement than when I was still working? Many parents, over the age of 70, are still pushing themselves to take care of grandchildren, clean the house, and cook for their adult children, as if they're repaying some kind of unspoken debt. You're not alone. Many older adults in states like California, Texas, and Florida are caught in a similar cycle, trying to please their children and grandchildren, sacrificing their time, health, and even personal desires, just to keep the peace in the family. Michael, 74, from Oregon, used to be a strong, independent man, but ever since his son's divorce, Michael has become a full-time babysitter for his 2 young grandchildren. His workout routine was wiped out, his rest time disappeared, and meals became hastily prepared cold food. One day, he collapsed after cleaning the house, not because of illness, but from sheer exhaustion. Michael's story is not uncommon. The real danger doesn't lie in caring for your loved ones, but in losing your personal boundaries and gradually losing yourself. Many people don't realize kindness without limits can turn into a burden for both sides. So, how can you continue loving your children and grandchildren without giving up your freedom and dignity? This video will help you recognize 5 subtle signs that you're living more for others than for yourself. And more importantly, it will guide you step by step to reclaim a life that's more independent, peaceful, and whole. If this topic resonates with you or someone you care about, please hit like and share this video. You can also leave a comment. I would love to know, have you ever felt like Michael? Now let's explore the first sign, something seemingly small, but perhaps the very root of the exhaustion you've been feeling for years. When love goes beyond reasonable limits, it ceases to be pure affection and becomes a silent form of sacrifice, often making people forget that they too are human beings in need of care. Have you ever postponed a doctor's appointment just because your child suddenly needed you to babysit? Or missed taking your medication on time because you were busy cooking dinner for your children's household? If this happens often, chances are you're putting others before yourself, in a way that may be dangerous. Many older adults, especially within Asian communities or those with strong family traditions, often carry the belief that sacrifice for their children never ends, even after the children have grown and started their own families. They willingly give up their right to self-care, delay medical checkups, take medications late, or skip sleep just to fulfill a small request from their children. But after the age of 70, every such delay could mean losing a precious opportunity to maintain your health. Even more concerning, this pattern can slowly turn an independent person into someone who becomes dependent on the approval and needs of others. Misunderstood love leads to exhaustion, both physical and emotional. And sadly, these sacrifices often go unrecognized because the children have grown accustomed to their parents always being there whenever needed. But you absolutely can change that. Health is not selfishness. It is a basic human right, especially in old age. When you care for yourself responsibly, you're not only protecting your own quality of life, but also contributing to the stability of your family. Living healthily is about living longer, but more importantly, it's about living with purpose, joy, and autonomy. Start with small things. Keep your medical appointments as non-negotiable commitments. Take your medication on time as if it's a sacred daily ritual. Create a space for yourself every day. Even just 30 minutes of walking, meditation, reading, or gentle rest is enough for your body and mind to recharge. And when your children need help, gently say, "I'll support you after I finish what I need to do." It's not rejection, It's about putting yourself in the rightful place. When you do this, you not only feel healthier, but you also reclaim the sense of autonomy and dignity that may have been lost in countless moments of reluctant yeses. You are no longer the devoted helper, but a mature adult who loves with clarity. And then something wonderful will happen. Your children will also begin to respect your boundaries and learn to be more independent. Because when you know how to love yourself, you unknowingly teach your children the true meaning of love. But here's the question. If we know how important our health is, why is it still so hard to say no to our children, even when we have a valid reason? The answer lies in a quiet, lingering sense of guilt, something we'll begin to unpack in the next section. There is a quiet feeling that many older parents carry in their hearts. Guilt, every time they have to say no to their children, even when the reason is completely valid. Have you ever hesitated to turn down babysitting because you had a doctor's appointment, or reluctantly agreed to lend your child money for the third time this year just because you didn't want to disappoint them? That feeling, hard to articulate but always present, is what traps many older adults in a cycle of constantly putting others first, seeing no as a kind of failure in their role as a parent. But why does this happen? For many from older generations, especially those born in the post-war era or who immigrated to a new country, caring for and sacrificing for their children became a deeply ingrained life value. They were taught that to be a parent is to give unconditionally, to always be there when your children need you. That's why, when faced with a situation where saying no is the healthiest choice, they don't just feel uncomfortable, they feel as though they're betraying their very identity as a parent. What's dangerous is that this guilt often doesn't come from the children. It comes from within. It causes parents to question themselves every time they try to set boundaries. And if their children respond with even the slightest disappointment, a half-spoken remark or a subtle look, that guilt only deepens, making it easier to return to the familiar pattern of saying yes, just to keep the peace. But the truth is, saying no doesn't mean you don't love your children. On the contrary, it's a mature form of love, one where you protect your health, dignity, and emotional energy. Because when you always say yes, even when you're not ready, that help stops being love. It becomes reluctant obligation. You can change this. Start by reminding yourself that saying no is not selfish. It's a way of affirming your right to be heard, respected, and to live according to your own needs. Practice saying no in a calm yet firm way. Sweetheart, I need to rest today. I'll help you tomorrow. Or, I understand you need support, but I also need to check my budget first. Most importantly, stop trying to please everyone because you no longer need to carry that burden. Being a parent doesn't end when your children grow up, but that doesn't mean you must continue sacrificing unconditionally for the rest of your life. When you start saying no at the right times, you open a new door, where love between you and your children is built on understanding and mutual respect, not pressure or unspoken expectations. And here's the beautiful part. When your children see you caring for yourself, they also learn valuable lessons about boundaries, responsibility, and gratitude. So if you've ever felt guilty for saying no, remember this. Sometimes, no is the greatest gift you can give to both yourself and your children. Now let's move on to another subtle but deeply damaging sign. Continuing to provide financial support to your children, even when it's putting your own well-being at risk. At an age when you should be resting, relaxing, and enjoying the fruits of your life's work, many older adults are still straining themselves financially to support their children, even when it far exceeds their means and quietly erodes their personal stability. Have you ever withdrawn money from your retirement savings to help your child pay off credit card debt? Or taken from your healthcare fund to pay for your grandchild's tutoring, even though you know you'll need that money for the future? These actions, born out of love, are silently pushing many seniors into a vulnerable, insecure, and chronically stressful position. More and more older parents are continuing to provide financial support to their adult children. According to AARP, millions of people aged 60 and over are using a significant portion of their fixed income to support children who are already in their 30s or even 40s. This happens for many reasons: economic crises, rising living costs, education pressures, but the deepest reason of all is often a feeling: if I don't help, my child will suffer. That thought leads many older adults to convince themselves, just this once. Once my child is stable, I'll stop. But the truth is, without clear financial boundaries, your children may never learn how to stand on their own. And you, the one always ready to rescue, may gradually fall into shortage, even debt, losing control over your finances and feeling lonely in your own home. You don't have to, and should not, live like that. Because finances aren't just about money. They're about freedom of choice, a sense of security, and the foundation that allows you to live comfortably, independently, and without dependence on anyone else in your later years. Losing financial stability also means losing control over your own life. So what should you do? First, be honest with yourself about your financial capacity. Look closely at your personal budget. How much fixed income do you have? How much do you need for healthcare, food, housing, and personal needs? Then, if your child asks for help, speak openly, not with blame, but with clarity. I love you, but right now, I need to prioritize my healthcare expenses. We'll need to find another solution together. Setting limits doesn't mean withholding love. On the contrary, it's a deeply loving act, because you're teaching your children about maturity, responsibility, and realistic boundaries. In fact, you're helping your children grow by not allowing them to remain dependent on you forever. When you protect your personal finances, you're not just safeguarding your well-being. You're preserving your self-respect, independence, and joy of living. And more importantly, you'll feel relief, peace of mind, and no longer need to secretly check your bank account every time your child texts, "I'm in a tough spot." So if you're currently providing financial support to your children, pause for a moment, look at your bank account, and ask, does this make me feel secure? If the answer is no, then it's time to make a change. Next, we'll explore another subtle yet deeply damaging sign: when your own emotions begin to be controlled by your child's reactions. Have you ever felt a heavy heart simply because your child showed disapproval, or felt confused and lost after hearing a blunt remark from the very child you spent your whole life caring for? If so, you're not alone. Many older parents are living in a state of emotional dependency, where their mood, decisions, and even sense of self-worth are dictated by their children's reactions. At over 70 years old, you should be living in peace, emotionally free, light-hearted, and confident. But instead, many parents constantly adjust their feelings to avoid upsetting their children, censor their own words to keep the peace, or make decisions not based on their own needs, but out of fear of causing offense. When your inner peace depends on someone else's attitude, even your child's, that is a clear sign you're losing emotional independence. Why is this so common? Part of it stems from a mindset many parents, especially from older generations, carry with them. As long as my children are happy, a little sacrifice is fine. They're willing to tolerate cold silence, harsh words, or indifference, just to preserve harmony in the home. But over time, this isn't love anymore. It becomes resignation, leading to emotional fatigue, disorientation, and eventually, damaged self-esteem. Emotions should never be a playground for others to control. You are a grown adult, full of wisdom and unique worth, and no one, not even your children, has the right to steer your feelings as they wish. The good news is, you can regain ownership of your emotional world. Start by recognizing your emotions. Every time you feel worried, hurt, or guilty after your child's reaction, pause and ask yourself, am I responding to reality or to someone else's expectations? Once you can tell the difference, you begin to step out of the storm of negative emotions. Next, learn to set soft but clear boundaries. You can say, I care deeply about your opinion, but I also need to be treated with respect. You don't need to raise your voice or argue. Just be steady in your stance and calmly protect your emotional space. Also, build an emotional channel that is entirely your own. It could be a personal hobby, a group of peers, or even a morning journaling practice. When you have a place to safely express your emotions, you no longer rely on others' attitudes to feel valuable. Living with self-respect is one of the most precious gifts you can give yourself in your later years. And when you do, something remarkable happens. Your children begin to see you differently, not as the one who always bends and yields, but as an independent, dignified, and admirable person. Now let's turn to one final sign. One that may seem small, but is in fact a major reason why so many older adults lose themselves, sacrificing personal needs to keep the family peace. There are sacrifices no one sees, no one acknowledges, yet they happen every single day, quietly. It's when you give up your rest time just to avoid upsetting your child. It's when you say, it's okay, even though your heart is in turmoil. It's when you smile to keep the peace, while inside, you feel so lonely it chokes you. Many older adults live in this state, suppressing their emotions, shelving their personal needs just to keep the family harmonious. They cancel doctor's appointments, skip social gatherings, and give up their cherished afternoon naps, just to meet their children's wishes, or simply to avoid conflict. Do you see yourself in this? The issue here isn't the act of sacrifice. It's when that sacrifice becomes a habit and slowly turns you into a faded version of yourself. When you continually place others' desires above your own needs, you gradually erode your sense of self-worth, silence your inner voice, and over time, you forget who you are and what you truly want. The truth is, real harmony doesn't come from submission. It comes from mutual respect, where each person has the right to be fully themselves. If a relationship requires you to sacrifice everything just to keep it intact, that's not harmony, it's imbalance. You don't have to keep living this way. You deserve peaceful afternoons, a warm cup of tea, a beloved book, and a space of your own that isn't interrupted by cries of mom or dad. You have the right to say, I'm tired today, without guilt. You have the right to protect your time without long explanations. And most importantly, you have the right to live fully, not just as a side character in someone else's story. Where do you begin? Start by listening to yourself. Write down 3 things you need each day to feel healthy and at peace. Then schedule them. Treat them as non-negotiable promises to yourself. If a situation makes you uncomfortable, don't rush to say yes. Say, let me think about it. because you have the right to consider your needs. And if you fear that doing this might strain the relationship, remember, honesty and self-respect are the strongest foundations for any lasting connection. When you love yourself the right way, your children will also learn how to love you more maturely. Peace doesn't come from always pleasing others. It comes from living in alignment with yourself, while still maintaining genuine connection. The journey to reclaim freedom, dignity, and health after 70 isn't impossible. It begins with small steps, but each one is a powerful declaration. I am still a whole person, worthy of being heard, loved, and respected. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my podcast. We've just walked through 5 signs that may be hard to accept, but they are deeply real in the lives of many people over the age of 70. From prioritizing your children's needs over your own health, feeling guilty for saying no, offering financial support beyond your means, letting your emotions be dictated by your children's reactions, to sacrificing your own needs just to keep the peace. Each one silently takes away a piece of your freedom, dignity, and inner peace. I don't know where you are on that journey, but if there's one thing I hope you hold on to after reading this, it's this: you deserve to live for yourself. I sincerely want to hear from you. Which part made you stop and think? Which sign did you recognize in yourself? Or if you've overcome one of these challenges before, could you share how you did it? Please leave a comment, even just a few words, because your story might be the lifeline someone else is searching for. If this message resonated with you, if it made you nod your head or recognize a quiet truth inside your heart, help me share it. Send it to a loved one, a friend, or someone you think might need to hear these words. Sometimes, a small act of sharing can open the door to a whole new beginning. And if you'd like to continue walking this path with me, a journey of healing, freedom, and self-respect in aging, don't hesitate to stay connected. There is still so much more wisdom for us to discover together. It is never too late to live differently. It is never too late to reclaim what you've forgotten, yourself.